So I read over consult, some pretty straightforward.
Yes.
Obedience.
Pretty much.
And then some reactivity?
Yes.
Okay, fill me in.
So on the leash, so let's see. I'll start at the beginning. He broke his leg like the first day I brought him home from a shelter.
Oh, wow.
So he was casted for 3 months. I have another dog who's 60 pounds, a golden doodle. So it wasn't really a big issue. I just couldn't let him play, with other dogs. And then once he was healed, we would go to dog parks, and he was actually like pretty good off leash because my other dog is good off leash. And then last spring, he discovered birds. And ever since then, I cannot trust him off the leash because he's just darting and he doesn't respond.
If he pulls you, yeah.
So that stopped his ability to be off leash. And then I feel like just because of that, he started getting like more pent up energy when he did see dogs. And it used to be excited, and we could walk by dogs, and it was just kind of like. And now he just is more aggressive, and we cannot walk past dogs because then my other dog will get aggressive, and he's 60 pounds.
16?
60.
60.
Yeah, full-size golden doodle.
Gotcha.
So I can't take them both. So we do a lot of just like crossing the street. We've done some online training to do some like disengagement strategies. So we do like U-turn, the find it game, count to 3, up, down, things like that. So he's gotten better with the disengagement, but it's driving me nuts that we have to cross the street, when we're on walks. And then I do feel like recently he's gotten more just like obstinate, and like if we can't go past a dog or something, he'll just start plopping. And whatever. Now I'm feeling like he's a little bit more reactive towards other dogs. So.
Okay. Yeah. How old?
2.5.
And then this started how long ago?
I would say in the last like year.
This year?
8 months to a year.
With the reactivity?
Yeah.
It's like around a year and a half?
Yeah.
Okay. And then prior to that?
No, he was fine.
Nothing.
Yeah, we'd go on walks and no
Yeah,
issue.
we'd be at the park with other dogs, and like he was totally fine.
And off leash, he's like, I go up to our summer house, and my aunt and uncle have dogs, and he can get along with dogs off the leash. It's just on the leash.
On the leash, sure.
And then I can't let him off because he won't come back.
Has you had any kind of negative experience with a dog, like a dog charging him, barking at him?
I'm sure, like on leash, yeah.
It's usually him though.
But prior, like
yeah.
up until a year and a half, like did you recall any kind of negative experience?
Nothing like specific, but on walks you get a dog every once in a while that snaps. So I'm sure it happened, but nothing like super like that. It's notable.
Okay, because that's usually pretty common.
Yeah.
Like I had a client, they had a golden doodle. He was like 4 or 5. He was an older dog, and he was attacked by an off-leash dog. Like it was actually a full-blown attack.
Okay.
He was fine, like the bite stitches or whatever. But then like a light switch the next day, he was dog reactive, dog aggressive.
Okay.
Because it creates a distrust.
Totally, yeah.
Because the dog's like, all right, well, I'm with my owner. I was attacked, so I can't count on you to prevent the situation or protect me from the situation. So then I'm going to just proactively assert myself to just scare all dogs away.
Right.
Yeah.
And we trained him, and then the reactivity went away. He was capable of being social again, but it had to be in controlled context. Like he couldn't do dog bark anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Because those dogs are uncontrolled, so that would make him edgy.
Okay.
Otherwise, 6 months, a year, and 2 years are typically where we expect to see some kind of behavioral shift.
Right.
Okay. 6 months, if you guys are familiar with child development, I like to refer to as like the terrible twos brain and teenager body. At a year, we get teenager brain, adult body. At 2 years, you get adult dog. Okay. So typically, we see things happening around that time. Sometimes it's organic, like, especially with my power breeds, my pitties, my bull terriers, my rowdies, my German shepherds, they'll be fine up until 6 months. And then at 6 months, like a light switch, they're just dog reactive, and I tell them it's because they're coming into their, their personality and stuff. So these things are kind of expected. Or it's, the dog's a year, and then right around that time when there's a shift, something negative happens. So like I had one client, they had a shelf, like a pantry or whatever, and I guess one of the shelves collapsed and like all the pans fell.
Ooh.
And it startled the dog.
Yeah.
And again, like a light switch, the dog became like a nervous, anxious wreck, So things like that can happen.
Yeah.
Otherwise, one thing I look at here is, we have a harness. Is that something he's been on?
Yes, and I'm open to whatever, but that's just always what I've had with like my dogs growing up.
Sure.
One dog, we did an Airedale Terrier, and we did the prong collar because he was a little more high strung.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, otherwise this is what we've been doing.
They're not very common. I've only trained a few of those guys in my career. So harnesses in time can promote or create aggression or aggressive behaviors. It's not guaranteed. Like it's something that like if I see your dog on it, I'm gonna go less likely. But if I see like a pitty or again a power breed on it, I go more likely. Okay. In protection training, what we do is we put a harness on the dog, clipped to the back, and then we have an antagonizer, right? And they're acting suspicious or they're doing things to taunt the dog because we're trying to pull out that aggression. And we want nothing inhibiting the throat. We don't want the dog to lunge and catch themselves, right? Because then we have a negative. We want something that's going to frustrate the dog. So what happens is the dog starts to become interested, even agitated. We're pulling back on the harness, creating the inability to get to the thing, which creates frustration. And in time, that frustration can develop into agitation, and agitation becomes aggression.
Right.
Okay? And then we would release the dog, of course, to reward the behavior, and that's how we build that.
Right.
So a lot of times with puppies, you know, we put them on harness because we don't want anything, because they're not trained, right? We don't want them to gag. But then what happens is this puppy is completely social. They see another dog, and we go, well, our puppy's not vaccinated yet, so then we pull them away, and the puppy's trying to say hi, so now we start to create frustration, okay? And we do that day after day. And eventually, again, frustration becomes agitation becomes aggression, and next thing you know, the client is unintentionally trained their dog to be an aggressive dog on the leash, you know? So that's another thing that we factor in, okay? Because he's so capable of being social, like, the issue is most likely just frustration.
Yeah.
Once we start to address the frustration, that the reactivity should start to go away.
Okay.
Now, I don't advise people to greet dogs on leash.
Yeah.
For a number of reasons. One, it's not natural. On a leash, if you see someone, you're like, oh, can my dog say hi? They tend to greet face to face, okay? Which is confrontational. So as humans, we greet face to face. Hey, how are you, right? Dogs greet nose to butt. So this is why I've seen like people that are, you know, on the street, oh, my dog's friendly. And then you can see the dogs like face to face, shoulder to shoulder, and you can see the tension. And then all of a sudden there's a scuffle, there's a dog fight. You know, they're like, oh my God, like my dog's not aggressive. I've never seen this before. And it's just how the interaction was done. Whereas if they were off leash, they probably just came to each other, sniffed each other's butts, you know, wagged their tails, and then started playing, right? So a couple other theories would be on the leash. So we have four responses to danger: fight, flight, avoidance, submission. Okay, fight or flight are always the first two. So if a dog's on leash, which one of those is not available?
Flight.
Flight,
Yeah.
right? So they're more likely to go into fight response, right? But when they're off the leash, flight is now available, that we don't see the fight response. Okay, so that usually confuses people because we're like, I don't get it, Jesse. Like my dog's great off leash, but then on leash, like he's a jerk.
Yeah.
I go, that's my theory on that kind of stuff.
That makes sense.
Okay, so questions so far?
No, that all makes sense.
Yeah, all tracks.
And the harness thing kind of clicked the most with me because I do remember there was a time, I don't know if you remember this, we first, I think, started going on walks because of his leg, and he definitely would pull a lot more.
Yeah.
And so I do feel like that frustration kind of turned into agitation, for sure.
Have you ever heard of opposition reflex?
Maybe.
It's a fancy word. All it means is when a dog feels tension, they want to go against it. So if he feels tension pulling him back, he wants to go more forward.
Yeah.
Right? If you pull left, he pulls right. You pull right, he pulls left.
Yeah,
You
he
want to
does
go against it, right? It's instinctual. It's not him, you know, being disobedient, whatever. It's just literally how they're wired. So, you know, when we put the harnesses on the dog, even those no-pull harnesses that you may see, right?
Yeah.
That's an oxymoron because harnesses are made for pulling. Huskies wear harnesses to pull sleds. Horses wear harnesses to pull carriages.
Right.
Right? So same thing here, especially if it's a back clip harness, you know, that gives him even more power because his back paws push forward, his front paws pull forward, and he's lower. Our center of gravity is here, it's at our hips, right? So that's where we get this. And it's really hard to kind of pull a dog. So even a little dog can have quite a bit of leverage over you just because they're lower to the ground than we are, you know?
Because I actually used to clip it in the front.
Yeah.
That I'm thinking about.
And then what happens is,
It turns.
yes.
Yeah.
I've even seen dogs on the hind legs
Yeah.
walking
And I
like
think,
this.
I think
you
for a
know?
while it was just like, it was so far over. I was like, I feel like he's going to slip out of this too.
Yeah.
So anyway.
No, it's okay. And, you know, that's why I'm here.
Yeah.
So the collars or the tools that I use are e-collar and prong collar. Okay, I actually train with e-collar, and sometimes I incorporate prong collar. Is how I would actually describe it.
Okay.
So like right now we have a Great Dane. He's 140 pounds. He's here for a 4-week board and train. Husband is like 6'4", big guy, no problem controlling the dog.
Right.
Wife's like 5'3", so and like probably weighs less than the dog.
Yeah.
You know, so that's a very common thing where I get someone who can kind of manhandle the dog and then someone who can't. With how we train, it doesn't matter. You know, the e-collar does the bulk of the work. The prong collar, in his case, there's extra leverage because he is a 140-pound dog.
Yeah.
Okay. Prong collars are great tools, as you know, that you use one for your Airedale, right? Do you know why it looks the way it looks?
I don't think so, no.
So a lot of people, you know, a prong collar, right? The spiky-looking one. You would look at that and you go like, oh, it's meant to like hurt the dog or torment the dog or what have you. It's actually meant to mimic a dog bite. That's why it looks like teeth. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So like if he was at the dog park and let's say he tried to mount the dog and they didn't like it, they would nip him. Right? Doesn't make that dog aggressive. That dog's just saying that's not acceptable. I'm not going to allow that.
Right.
So that's what we would call a correction. Right. So the prong collar is like a dog bite. So for example, if he jumps on me, technically speaking, I could pop the prong collar to create a quick little snapping motion to correct them to go, you're not going to jump on me.
Yeah.
We can also use it for obedience, but that's why it looks that way. You know, it can be menacing, but once you understand the theory behind it, you're like, well, this makes sense.
Yeah.
Like this here example is a dog bite. This is right there. This is 10 stitches. Okay, this is a Great Dane from September of 2019. The dog wasn't aggressive. It was his first day at my old facility. He was also here coincidentally for a 4-week board and train, and I hadn't had a Great Dane yet because I had just opened in like July. And I went to load him into the kennel because it was a standard wire crate kennel to see if he would just fit in it. Okay, well he wasn't going to fit in it, but he also wasn't going to go in it because no one ever made him go into a kennel. So he freaked out, he panicked.
Yeah.
And then he looked up and he bit me. And this is the closest thing that was available to him. And because he's a Great Dane, there was no way for me to avoid it.
Yeah.
Okay. They took him home. I healed up. They brought him back. I trained him, no problem. Never bit anybody since. Never bit anybody prior. It was just that isolated incident. But he used what he had available, which is his teeth, to tell me, like, I'm not going to go in there.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So I don't take that personally. You know, unfortunately, when for people, when they see a dog bite something, like this usually, oh, the dog's aggressive.
Right.
You know, I'm like, well, dogs are not completely amicable creatures. They have feelings, right? They can feel threatened, stuff like that. And anybody can be put in a context where they could feel like they need to become defensive, you know?
Yeah.
So, so prong collars are great tools, but we actually train 99.99% of the time on the e-collar, okay? It's the only tool, in my opinion, that gives you off-leash control. Every other tool is dependent on a leash, right? Whether it's a prong collar, a slip chain, a gentle leader, a harness, no pull harness, what have you. The moment you unclip the leash, you now no longer have any means of physical contact with the dog.
Right.
In my experience, dogs know that.
Right.
Even if you're using a prong collar, if you take the leash off, like, well, you no longer have the ability to correct me.
Right.
Okay. So if they're 20 feet away and you're like, come, like, what are you gonna do about it? You know, you're kind of lost. E-collar, we don't have that. Okay. On or off leash, we have contact with the dog. Certain models go up to a mile in range because they're meant for hunting dogs.
Okay.
And they obviously go very far to like fetch and retrieve. Whereas for the average dog owner, obviously your dog's not going to be a mile away from you.
Right.
Okay. So plenty of range for the average dog owner. But I've had it happen to clients. So I had one in particular. They had their first 2 classes, which are both heel, and the 3rd class was going to be recall. Between class 2 and class 3, their dog, they were at the park. They're at Trebs Park, which is in Lincoln Park.
Yeah, we live right there.
Oh, do you know Nash?
What kind of dog?
He's a big, probably 80-pound dog, kind of creamish in color. Got a little bit, I think it's like an underbite. Owner's
Maybe.
Melissa.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
They live right across Trebs.
Okay.
Yeah, Melissa and Drew.
Okay.
Okay. So Nash is actually the dog.
Okay.
The story's about. So Melissa's at Trebs with Nash. Nash sees Milo, which is another dog that we trained, across Clifton. Right? So we got Trebs, we got Webster, we got Clifton.
Yep.
Milo's across Clifton, and they were best friends. So Nash takes off.
Yeah.
Okay. Melissa's like, uh-oh, well, he's going to hit the street, right? So she's like, I got this tool. So she ended up going 127. I believe she had to continuous him, which is the harshest correction you can give.
Right.
But he ended up 180ing and running back to her.
Good.
Okay. So when I saw her the next class, she's like, Jesse, I hope I didn't screw up the training. She tells me the story. I go, no. It's like, you did exactly what you should do in that kind of situation. Because it was either he's guaranteed going to hit the street, or you gamble he's either going to hit the street anyways, or I'm going to return him.
Yeah.
You know? In her case, she returned him. Things like that do happen. And that's not like the only story. It's not common, but it happens, right?
Yeah.
Where, you know, you haven't covered recall, or it's not 100% yet, and then a firework happens, or like there's an off-leash dog attack or something that also happened to a client, and she was able to return her dog because of the e-collar, right? Is we have these kind of crazy situations, but because of this tool, we have a means of still kind of regaining control, okay? So, but that's why it's, in my opinion, the best tool there is. My dog's been off-leash trained for 13 years because they're 15 now.
Okay.
And if I know they're going to be off-leash, they still have their collars on. It's not because I'm a shitty trainer or anything like that. It's because I'm just realistic.
Right.
I know things can happen, you know? And like my pit is scared of fireworks. She hates fireworks. And I know if one goes off in October, because some kid decided, hey, oh, I found some in my car, so let me set them off, right? is I can still return her. Okay. Question on any of that stuff.
No.
What's also nice is that we can fine tune it to the specific personality type. This is funny. He's like listening.
He's like the most docile like human.
No, I
He'll
like his
watch
energy.
TV. He'll
Yeah.
literally watch TV. It's so
He's
funny.
super chill.
No, but he is not super chill though. Like there'll
With
be
a dog. Yeah.
What?
It's funny. With a dog.
yeah.
For sure.
No, but like there'll be a horse on TV
Oh,
and he
yeah.
has his like paws up against it.
Yeah. So he's got prey drive, is what it sounds like.
Yes.
Because he said he's
Birds,
learned about
squirrels,
birds.
yeah. He definitely. I got him from a shelter, so he's supposedly a mini golden doodle, but I feel like he has something else in him.
Sure. I mean, I got a doodle, another doodle that I trained previously, super high prey drive.
Okay.
Like working dog level.
Yeah.
And like he's from a breeder, everything,
Okay.
papers and all that stuff. And he's like, yeah, this dog's crazy. I'm like, it's just the dog that you got.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So we're not trying to create robots. We want dogs that can be dogs, but when we tell them to do something,
They do
they're going to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? If he's got prey drive, great, he's a dog.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want him to chase squirrels, but I also want him to come back when I say it's time to come back, or I also want him to not do anything when I tell him not today.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what the e-collar allows us to do, because I can't predict his prey drive level, right? But I know with this tool, I'm much more likely to match it than I am to not be able to. That's something that people don't factor in, you know, when they're like working with their dogs,
Yeah.
is I factor in the breed, the size, the density of the coat. If there's any behavioral issues like anxiety, fear, nervousness, aggression, in this case, prey drive, right? I have to factor all those things in. So when I go, okay, this is the color that you want, it's because I go, this is a color I'm pretty certain that we're not going to have to worry about anything.
Yeah.
Okay? Because I hate to undercut it, and then you're in the situation, because dogs can't override the collar.
Right.
If you don't have the appropriate one.
Yeah.
Like they'll just like completely ignore it. You know, so if the prey drive's through the roof and you're sitting there maxed out and he's like, I could care less about this.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I should have got the other
Yeah.
collar, you know? So, but yeah, we're not trying to create a robot. With more control, you get more freedom, is the easiest way to kind
Yeah.
of think about it. You know, if I got a dog that I can tell, you know, that's a placemat. So we were doing place work with the dog earlier. Let's say they go to a restaurant, they want to bring their dog with them. They bring a towel, they put it on the ground, they tell him place. He goes there, they can enjoy a nice little brunch and not have to worry about their dog wandering or anything like that. Let's say, you know, you want to go to the park and let them chase squirrels and be off leash, and you can recall them. Like my dogs can go anywhere. I don't have to worry about, oh, there's a busy street here, because I
Yeah.
know like they're not going to take off on me.
Right.
If that makes sense. So the behavior stuff, the reactivity, it can seem like it's how do you say, a targeted issue, but a lot of times, I'm going to say in this case, when it's frustration based,
Yeah.
it goes away with just the discipline. Okay. So most people don't discipline their dogs correctly. Okay. And what I mean by that is a dog would discipline another dog by doing what?
Nipping it.
Yes. Nipping, biting, physicality, right? Most people don't do that. Well, all people don't do that, right? They don't nip or bite their dog. Actually, I did have one person that bit their dog in the ear. Yes.
Wow.
But it actually
That's
worked.
silly.
So what happened was her dog was a resource guarder, and her kids used to drop lollipop sticks, and the dog would get them and then chew them and eat them. So one day the dog had a lollipop stick, and she went to pick up the dog and then take out the lollipop stick, and the dog bit her. So instinctively, she just did this and bit the dog in the ear. The dog yelped, released the bite, dropped the object. And she said since that day, the dog didn't do it
Oh
anymore.
wow.
Really?
Yes. Okay. It's crazy, and I don't recommend people bite their dogs.
Yeah.
But I told, because she came up to me as a coworker. This was many years ago when I was at PetSmart, and she's like, "Jesse, please don't judge me, but XYZ." And I started laughing. I'm like, "Well, technically speaking, you just did what another dog would do."
Yeah.
You know, it's just we don't do that because we're humans.
Yeah.
So, but in his case, I'd expect the reactivity to go away just through the heel-based training.
Okay.
It's usually 2 classes, and then you're my feedback. Okay, so class 1, I'm assuming you're running in person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you show up with your dog, you have the appropriate collar, everything like that. All you need is a flat collar. We no longer need a harness unless you use it for like driving, you know, like the belt thing or whatever. I work you through everything real time. Okay. So you have your first class, and I go, here's your homework, rinse and repeat. Okay. You come back the following week, I ask you a few questions. One of them is probably going to be, how's the reactivity? Okay. And you might go, he's 80% better. He's already walking past dogs with no reactivity. I go, great. The first class already did 80% of the work.
Yeah.
Right? Or it could be 40%. I go, no problem. At least I know 40% is done. Okay. It could also be 0%, but I highly doubt it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Second class, second part of heel. If we have to make tweaks to the collar, we do so. If there is any lingering reactivity, we'll make more tweaks, and then I go rinse and repeat, come back. Okay. Come back to third week. How are we doing? reactivity is great. We haven't seen it. What we did last week is really working. I go, great. Then we just continue with teaching obedience. Okay. If it happens to be a case, right, where it's like legitimately reactivity in the dog's going to make us work for it, then the third class is typically forcing the problem, working through the problem in a controlled context, and then going rinse and repeat. Okay. Almost always the answer is, how high do we need to go for the dog to stop?
Okay.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple. Once a dog understands how the collar works, it's just what number does he need to stop it. Okay. So like I have a blue heeler right now, who's going to be one of those cases that I get a year that is very bad. And the owner was having a hard time with reactivity. So we get him to class 3. We were here. I brought out a dog. It took me like 45 to 50 minutes before we finally got the dog to stop the reactivity.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was really bad.
Yeah.
Okay. This is super rare.
Yeah.
So then I told the owner, I'm like, sucks to be you, but unfortunately, this is the dog that you have. But you can see, we had to start at 15, and then we worked all the way up until 95. And then once we hit 95, the dog finally starts to give it up.
Yeah.
And he gave it up with 95 and the prong collar. So I also had to incorporate another tool because we weren't doing that before.
Yeah.
And then we got him to stop.
Okay.
And since then, the owner's like, oh, he's much easier now. So now we just need consistency before he finally starts to like keep his reactivity in check. Okay.
Yeah.
Most dogs are not that bad. Most dogs are pretty straightforward. Okay. So with the third class, it's more so me showing you how to work through everything. And then typically, I'll tell the owner, don't come back for a week or two, because I need to see that what we're doing is working. Let's say, they go a week and they're like, hey, Jesse, we're still struggling. Then I'll say via email, you're going to do this now. And I don't book the next class until I do everything that I know in the book. And then they go, okay, now it's working. I go, great, take another 2 weeks to let it really sink. And if there's no reactivity, then we have class 4.
Yeah.
There's no point in drilling out the problem, because once you understand how to address it, it's fairly straightforward.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's say it'd be 2 on that, maybe a third on reactivity. We can do recall, right, which is obviously a concern here. Recall, it only takes me a class to teach, but it takes a long time to get to be off-leash reliable.
Right.
Okay. So I would show you how to do it, explain how to do it, and it's just rinse and repeat for months until you go, he's off-leash reliable. Okay. Clients always ask, like, how do I know when they're ready? And I tell them, because you're the one that does everything.
Right.
Right. So if I tell a client like, oh, take the leash off, and they go, I wouldn't take the leash off, then I go, you're not ready. And you get other clients, right, I tell them to do it, and they go, sure, and they just take it off. It's very intuitive.
Yeah.
Because you're the one that does all the training, you're the one that knows all the environments you've done the training, the distractions that have been around when he's done the training. If you've done recall with rabbits, birds, squirrels, right, raccoons, whatever, and you're like, yeah, he's spot on with everything, then obviously you're going to come to that confidence of like, yeah, we can let him off leash, we're not worried about it. Okay. So it typically takes a class to teach, and I would say if you want a timeline, it could take about 6-ish months before he's going to be fully reliable. Okay. Because there's a lot of stages to it.
Yeah.
Another thing would be like duration work, which is the place command there, depending on how much you're trying to teach. Okay. So we have 6 commands: sit, stay, down, come, place, heel. Those are what I call like the family pet 6 that every dog should be able to do, and that allow you to do anything with your dog. Okay. I don't care about rollover. I don't care about give me paw. Yes, there's fancier obedience like walking backwards and pivoting and all that stuff.
Right.
Most people don't need that, but those 6 commands are the things that are going to allow you to do whatever you want with this guy here. Okay. Now, the only 3 commands that I would say every dog really, really needs to know would be heel, come, and then place. We have walk with me, or don't pull, come to me, and don't move. Those 3 things and those 3 commands also allow you to do a majority of things you'd want to do.
Yeah.
The sit, down, and stay are, yes, they're very useful, but if you have place, they can kind of just replaces those.
Right.
Unless I get a client that's like, I want my dog to know everything. Okay. So we have 3, 6, 9, and 12-week programs. You'd be somewhere between the 6 to 12, depending on how advanced you want your training to be.
Okay.
Okay. Think of 6 as 2 on heel, 1 on recall, 1 on place, 1 on reactivity, maybe, right? And then you have the 6th as a variable.
Okay.
Okay, that we could review something or what have you. If you did 9, it's the same outline, except we'd have 3 to 4 classes as a variable, and then we could take the 3 things that we learned, like place, heel, and come, and I show you how to build them towards off leash. Okay, if you do a 12-class program, then that's where we're doing sit, stay down, come, place, heel, all built to an off-leash level. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. With the longer programs, with 9, typically around class 7 or 8, I'll tell you, you have everything you need to start practicing. Now you need to just practice for a month or 2, and then come back when you're ready for the next step. Okay. Same thing with 12. Once we get to class 9 or 12, you'll know everything you need to do to build towards off-leash. Now you need time to rinse and repeat. Okay, because these things do start to stack.
Yeah.
And at some point, your homework becomes a lot of homework. So then sometimes I don't see clients for a couple of months. I've even had clients finish the program at the start of fall. They'll take, fall, winter, spring off, and then they'll come back the following summer to finish the rest of the program. Okay. I don't care how people split up the program. I just care that they let us know ahead of time so that, my calendar can be adjusted accordingly.
Yeah.
But that's typically how that works if we're pushing towards off-leash, because even though I tell people, whatever you do, don't do this, and you always want to do this, people mix it up, and they go, Jesse, I say stay, and when I walk away, my dog always follows me. I already know what the problem is. They do stay, and then they do recall from stay.
Yeah.
I always tell everybody don't do that
Right.
because of that problem. Okay, but it's like almost inevitable that people they'll complain, and I'm like, okay, let's fix that problem. And then we do that. So that's why the end takes longer. Otherwise, if it's like a really good client and they take everything and they just do it as I say, it's a fairly straightforward process.
Okay.
Okay. Question on any of that?
So my other dog is pretty well trained. Does anything come in with like him? I'm not trying to get him trained through you, but like, would there ever be an opportunity where like it would be helpful to see how they interact together or anything like that?
So only thing about when we have another dog is that if the other dog doesn't heel as tight as he does,
Yeah.
okay, because my heel is very tight, is if this dog is pulling, it incentivizes him to want to pull.
Okay.
So then you're constantly having to address him because of what's happening here.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Now, let's say they were both trained to the same degree. Now there's no feedback loop,
Okay.
right? Because they're feeding off each other and they're both in control. So like right now I have a client, they have 2 Frenchies. The younger Frenchie started attacking the older Frenchie, okay? So obviously the priority is train the younger Frenchie. And then they were thinking about training the second Frenchie, but budgeting and all that stuff, they couldn't do it.
Right.
Said, no problem, this is the main concern anyways, right? But they're already starting to notice that little feedback loop, because like I saw them before you. They were walking with their one dog in control, and then the other dog was of course loose, and they kept noticing that this dog kept pulling, so they're constantly having to correct them. I go, yeah. I was like, it's because he's seeing that dog and going like, well, if he can do it, then why can't I do it?
Right.
Okay. Now, if you're walking one dog and she's walking him, completely fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's no immediate feedback there.
Right.
Okay. Otherwise, doesn't really matter. We can teach him to ignore a lot of things.
Okay.
Like he can learn like, okay, whatever that dog's doing doesn't apply to me,
Yeah.
but walking is the one thing that's a little bit more difficult.
Okay.
Okay. Other questions?
So if we take them both for a walk and she has him and I have Winston, like there shouldn't be any issue.
That's funny. It's a third Winston
Yeah.
right now. So the dog that's being attacked, the Frenchie, is Winston.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
That
crazy.
is funny.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, what was your question again?
So if she's walking Ernie and I'm walking Winston, like
Yeah, yeah.
together, it shouldn't be a big deal. But if I'm walking both of them,
Yes.
we may have some. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Understood.
What does Winston walk on?
Also a harness. So like I was thinking a lot of whatever we learned with Ernie, we might transition over to Winston just because if it works, it works. The e-collar, it sounds like, is a little bit more specific, whatever.
Specific.
Specific, thank you. I was like, specifications.
Yeah, well, we got to
Specific.
take into account the dog's personality type,
Yeah.
right? So you'd be surprised how many times this happens. It'll be 2 dogs. One dog's a problem, one dog's not the problem. The one dog that's a problem, easy to train in the e-collar. The one dog that's not a problem, difficult. Okay? And my theory is because the easygoing dog a lot of times doesn't get discipline.
Right.
Because it's an easygoing dog. Whereas the other dog gets some form of discipline, right? So there's familiarity there. So then once we start to add in the e-collar, the dog that's easygoing is more resistant because they're like,
They're not used
now
to
you're
it.
making me do stuff.
Yeah.
Yes. You see that?
Yeah.
Whereas I treat all dogs the same. I
Right.
train whether they're easy or not, always on the remote collar, just because of things could happen in life. So that would be the only thing. Like 2 degree, yes, it could be like he takes very well, he's easy to work with, and then you try to apply it to Winston, and it's like, oh, Winston's not as easy to work with, right? The other thing are stress responses. So like e-collar as a stressor. When we start working with them, it's not uncommon to see nervousness, anxiety, or even a little bit of fearfulness because it's a unfamiliar sensation.
Yeah.
But as we repeat the exercises and the training, the dogs get over it. Okay. So he could be very straightforward, but then when you apply to Winston, he could be super nervous.
Yeah.
Right. Now, can he still be trained? Absolutely. It's just, well, if you don't know how to train a nervous dog, well, then you're kind of stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Because
Yeah.
you can only learn so much from him. So
Right.
every case is different. That's the only thing that I can't account for.
Yeah.
It's just how the dogs respond to it. But I can help the dog. I can train the dog, but I'm there to help show you now.
Right.
Okay. Other questions?
I don't think so.
So with that in mind, if you are thinking about, whether on your own or what have you with the other dog, there are different models of collars. You can do one remote to 2 dogs, okay? And you can also have the remote duplicated. So it could be 2 remotes to both dogs, okay? And this is something that I definitely suggest you think about ahead of time.
Okay.
Because if you do it up front, it's very straightforward and it saves you money long term. If let's say you bought like a single dog system and then you're like, oh, this is great. We want to train Winston. Well, then you'd either have to buy another singular system, but now it's 2 remotes because it's 1 remote to both dogs.
Yeah.
So now you always have to have 2, right? Or it's like you get the remotes mixed up, or it's like, oh, do you have Winston's remote, this and that, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if you're like, no, we're gonna just, do the 2 system, dog system, what have you, at least you have control of both dogs always.
Yeah.
Okay? So then the next thing is, if you do the family system, and this is more so because when I work with couples, is if it's just one remote to 2 dogs, and like you both have to walk a dog, but only one person has a remote,
yeah.
right? Or let's say you're doing training in the house, someone sets it down somewhere, and then you need to correct the dog, and you're like, where'd you put the remote?
Yeah.
I think I left it on the coffee table, right? It's not here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So having 2 remotes is nice in that sense,
Yeah.
okay? And I have to order those from the distributor because I tell them what to do,
Yeah.
and then it's done a la carte. So it's a little bit more expensive, but it's more convenient, so it pays off in the long run.
Yeah.
Now, if you get your stuff through us, it is 10% off, so you do save money there as well. I have another client who is interested in the 2-dog family system, and I can tell you off the bat, with taxes and then the discount, it would drop to like $780-ish. Okay. Now I know it's like an investment. The collars last a really long time. I had my first batch of collars for about 10, 12 years before they crapped out.
Okay.
And then I got new systems. The most common thing that does happen is a rechargeable lithium battery does give over time. You do get a 1-year warranty that covers any kind of manufacturing faults or whatever, like stuff like that. If it's a repair that's needed through wear and tear, then that's something that you have to send it in, and then they'll give you an estimate and all that kind of stuff. But for the most part, it's very rare that something else happens other than the battery.
Okay.
Okay. The battery you can change out yourself if it's past a year and you don't want to have to send it to them or whatever. It's like a $20, $25 battery. Open it up, unplug it, plug the new one in, close it up, put the screws in, good to go again.
Got it.
Okay. Question on any of that?
So if we were to go that route, like the family system, is there a way that we could either have like Winston come here for like a couple like, how does that work?
So we do
don't wanna
add
put
on.
like
We add on half an hour.
Okay.
And it's $100 for half an hour.
Okay.
Okay, which is cheaper than $275 for an hour.
Yeah.
So if we're doing both at the same time, then you just add on half an hour for the
Okay.
classes.
Okay.
And then we do 45 minutes, 45 minutes.
Okay.
Trying to squeeze in 2 dogs in an hour is tight,
hard, yeah.
especially if the other dog is not as straightforward. Okay. Because I've tried to do it in the past with a client's like, well, can I try to get 2 in? I'm like,
Yeah.
I'll do my best. And then the second dog is like so now I'm like half an hour.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at least we got 45. Okay. If you're looking for like a nice middle ground where you can get off-leash control, but you don't have to worry about like 12 class or whatever, 9's always a nice amount of time. Where we don't get everything to be off leash, but we get, recall obviously, heel, and then some version of stay. And then if you guys are doing really good with the homework, I teach as much as I can. It all comes down to the humans.
Right.
If someone's like, oh, I didn't really practice this week, and like I want to review what we did last week, then I go, to me, that's a waste of class, right? But if that's what they want, I go, sure, you paid for my time.
Yeah.
But when I get my clients that really just do the homework and take everything in, we make a lot of progress.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Okay. Other questions?
So that would be a half hour added for as many classes as we want.
Yeah, but if you try to cut it short, it's going to be a little wonky. So usually we recommend you just do the program.
With both dogs.
But yes, but if you're like starting out, because once we hit a certain point, and it's like we try to squeeze it in, and then you only have the hour, and then it's like, well, we're still having issues training Winston, but the hour's up and I got a client booked after you, then it's see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Whereas if you do it ahead of time, you just have your hour and a half slot. We don't have to worry about like trying to make it happen.
Okay.
And then my next client coming.
Okay.
Because this is my busy season now.
I believe it.
So, late fall, winters, early spring, a lot of board and trains, a lot of daycare and trains.
Okay.
No one wants to be outside.
Right.
Okay. Now it's a flip where I'm starting to get all my in-person consults. Like, in 1 week, it was just like 5 consults come through, and then people start booking right away because they want to be outside and be the training. So my schedule's booked ahead of time.
Yeah.
So let's say you did 9 and you go, we want to do the half an hour extension, blah, 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 right? For 9 weeks plus 1, so 10 weeks, at the time that you pick, let's say it's Saturday at 10 o'clock, you have me for an hour and a half. Okay, so we're not worried about trying to add in the extra half an hour, but then I got someone coming.
Right.
And then if I already have someone booked after you, then technically speaking, we can't add on that extra half an hour.
Right.
If that makes sense?
Yeah.
So, but it's pretty straightforward. Like, and you'll get the results.
Right.
You just got to do the homework.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not worried about that because clients always ask, like, how do I know it's going to work? I'm like, it's going to work.
You
Yeah.
gotta put in some effort. No, I get it.
I've been
I
doing this
get
15 years. It's going to work.
I'm an occupational therapist, so when parents aren't helping, you can tell.
Yeah,
tell.
for sure.
So
Other questions?
What is the, like, as far as the homework goes, what's the time commitment?
So you train as you live your life until we get to the advanced stuff.
Okay.
Okay. So every time you go on a walk, you're doing your heel training. Or you're watching TV, you're doing your place training, right? Recall, that requires effort because you got to go to the park, have your long leash, pop your dog on a long leash, let them chase squirrels, do your recall, right? So recall and off-leash stuff is where like you're actually having to set time aside because you got to go practice in the environments, right? But that's why at the end we start to space out those classes because I've had it happen where a client comes back like, Jesse, I didn't get to the park at all this week. And I'm like, why are we here?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because I want people to get the most value out of their training sessions, and that's why I tell people up front, like at a certain point, I'll tell you, I suggest you start spacing them out now, and you come back when you're ready.
Okay.
I've also had clients pre-book. They'll book a month later, thinking, I got a month.
And then they
Life
don't do
happens,
anything,
they get sick,
Totally.
the weather's bad, their dog breaks a leg, whatever, right? And they show up, I'm like, why are we here? Just reach out and reschedule it. Just say, like, take me off, I'll reach out when I'm ready.
Okay.
We have no problem with that.
And then how, so like she's in person at work every day. I'm looking for a new job. I generally work remotely, so our schedules don't always match up perfectly. How important is it that we're like together while like, we're doing our homework, right?
While you're doing your homework?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter at all.
It doesn't matter at all. So if she's doing all the homework and I'm not doing it, it's not gonna, not that that's what would happen. I'm just like.
Right. So the beautiful thing about e-collar, and again, to me, it's just the best training tool, okay, is if she does all the training, he's going to respond to her.
Yeah.
If you told him sit, he'd probably walk in front of her and sit.
Yeah.
Okay. Like that's like a very common
That already
thing.
happens. So.
Yes. Okay.
they're my dogs.
But once you start doing your part, it transfers over.
Okay.
Okay. So I had a client. The dog was a doodle. It was like a Bernedoodle. It's a big dog.
Is it Bruce? Is his name Bruce?
Is the guy really tall?
Yeah.
And the wife like short?
She's shorter, yeah.
Yes, I think it is
That's
actually.
how they told us about this place.
Yes. So, funny thing about if it's the same dog, he shook like a leaf his first class. Okay, like it was bad.
He's like 100 pounds.
Yeah. But then like the next week he was completely fine. Because I could never predict how fast they're gonna get over it. And I saw him and I'm like, man, I think this is gonna be a while. Next class completely fine. And I was like, wow, that's crazy, right? But she did the heel training, if I'm remembering correctly,
Yes,
and he was all over the place.
block.
Yes, so she did the training, right? We work him through the healing stuff, and then she gave the leash. I can't remember the
Mike.
Mike
Mike and Captain.
to Mike, And then she was like, haha, good luck, right? And I told her, like, you did all the work.
Yeah.
Like, and then sure enough, started doing the training, Bruce walking, no problem.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fun, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because whatever, he's getting to the point where I'm like, I can't handle this. And I saw her recently, and I was like, where did you go again? And so she referred me.
Yeah. That's so funny.
Yeah.
But, you know, let's say, you know, you guys do the training and then you get a dog walker, you know, and then you tell them this is how he's trained, do X, Y, Z. If they do X, Y, Z, no problem.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
good to know.
That's why our board and trains have a high success rate.
Yeah.
Because transference is very high when done correctly.
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing is, let's say you can't make it to a lesson, okay, but you don't want to like postpone or anything, is I film everything.
Yeah.
And I send you a link afterwards.
Okay.
Right. So then you always have it there as a reference. I have a client, I trained their dog. It was like in 2020. Then they had a baby and stuff. They fell off the training. And then she emailed me. She's like, hey, Jesse, do you still happen to have, you know, Vinny's training videos? I go, yeah. You know, here they all are. And then a week later, she's like, Jesse, it was like night and day. The moment we started implementing the heel stuff, like
Yeah.
he went back to like what he was before. I go, yeah. So the other thing is they never forget it. It's like
Yeah.
riding a bike.
Yeah.
Literally, you know, you could go 2 years and then go, you know what, we're going to re-implement. And as long as you're doing it like you remembered it, comes right back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, it might be a little sloppy at first, which
Right.
is to be given, right? Like, you
Yeah.
know, had a dog that's done 2 years, but it comes right back.
Gotcha.
Okay. That's why we're also expensive,
Yeah.
because I know, like, I'm going to train the dog. I approach it as, you pay me to train your dog is going to be trained.
Yeah, it works.
It's none of this, like, come back for 3 years.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I'm training your dog, and it's lifelong.
Yeah.
And you're good to go. You know. Other questions?
So you said for the 2 collars, if we go that route, it's $780 with the discount.
$780-ish, correct.
That's like after taxes, everything.
Yep.
Okay, and then
And we'll double check for you, but I'm positive because I had to quote her for 2 systems, and they were 2 cents apart.
got it. And then as far as the classes, like how does that work? I haven't taken a look yet.
He has no how much it is.
Yeah, I have no idea how much it is.
Oh, sure.
I think I was looking at the 9 week, and it's like 20.
Yeah, it sounds about right. Just over 2,000, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
Okay.
And then that doesn't include the half-hour extension.
Right.
I think six was like around 1,500-ish. I think 2,000-ish is around.
Do you pay per class or you pay up front?
Upfront?
Up front, okay.
Yes, sir.
Got it.
Other questions?
I don't think so.
No. Yeah.
Do they ever need like boarding and stuff like that?
I have a family in Chicago, so usually somebody's available. But I'm not against it.
If they ever are busy or it just doesn't line up, any dog that's trained with us is welcome to use our boarding services, okay? At any point, as long as their records are updated, and then we just need a fresh fecal.
Okay.
You know, I get clients from St. Charles, Winnetka, Lombard, Hoffman Estates, Skokie, Wilmette, Indiana, even Wisconsin, like right at the border. I don't expect them to come once a week for daycare,
Right.
just so they can board their dog. You know, so any dogs that have trained by us and have met a qualifying program are welcome to board with us whenever they need to.
Oh, okay.
Pending, of course, their records are up to date and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Okay, so if that ever happens, reach out sooner rather than later. It
Right.
takes about 7 to 10 days to get everything set up, because the fecals, we don't accept like 2-month-old fecals.
Yeah.
We need a completely brand new fresh one.
Okay.
And we always ask about 7 to 10 days prior.
Okay.
Because we have had dogs where we get a fresh fecal,
And they
right?
get GRD or something.
Not even that. Like they come, the fecal is clear.
Yeah.
Okay. And they got a new one. And then they're here, and then 2 days later, there's worms in their poop.
Yeah.
Because the fecal was done during an incubation period, so it doesn't catch
Okay.
the parasites. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's like a sweet spot
Yeah.
where it gives enough time for things to show up if there is anything.
Okay.
But yeah, we've also had clients. Oh, but my fecal's only from 2 months ago.
Yeah,
We're like, yeah,
doesn't
we still
matter.
need one. Giardia.
Yeah.
That's happened so many times.
Oh, yeah.
They're like, oh my god. I'm
When
like,
Winston
yep.
was a puppy, he used to eat everything on the ground. And
Yes.
We dealt with that so many times.
Yes.
So I get it. Oh, last question. So are you doing Oz Park training or are you
Yes.
okay.
We're just starting to move now. I'm only going to be doing Oz Park the weekends.
That's fine. That actually is better for us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I do a lot. I have a lot of responsibilities right now
Yeah.
because we're putting $250,000 of repairs into the building.
Aye.
So I'm covering. I do the transports where I pick up the dogs and I drop them off. So that adds like 30-ish hours to my work week.
Okay.
And then obviously I have to be here, so I don't want to be stuck at Oz Park, stuck in traffic to get back.
Right.
I have to leave with the van.
Yeah.
So during the weekdays I'll be here, but during the weekends I'll be at the Oz Park.
Okay.
To do the training.
Because we live right over
And
there.
it,
Yeah.
and it's just you. It's always going to be you working with them. You don't have anyone else.
I don't have a twin.
Got it. Just wanted to.
No, for sure. Yeah, yeah. I used to have other trainers, but they went to school,
Okay.
you know, and then training slowed down too. So it's just been me.
All right.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Other questions?
I don't think so.
Very common question that we get is, when does the e-collar go away? In my book, when you need it, it doesn't. Okay.
Right.
It's not that you're always using it. It's simply there in case something happens.
Yeah.
If you follow the instructions correctly, the rate of applying the collar is obviously very high in the beginning as the training is happening, but as a condition, that's going to, of course, decline. You should get to the point where, like, I can't remember the last time I had to, you know, tap Ernie for something, right? Unless it's like, oh, we were walking and a squirrel just shot across us, you know, because he's going to be impulsive. But tap him and he stopped.
Yeah.
Or it's like we're at the park and then somebody blew up a firework, and of course we have to press the button. Like, that makes sense. Otherwise, it's simply present. You guys drive?
Yeah, I do.
Do you go on the expressway ever?
Yeah.
Do you go the speed limit?
For the most part, a little over sometimes.
A little over? Sure. Everybody speeds, right? What happens when you see a squad car?
Take my foot off the gas.
You slow down.
Yeah.
So this is what's known as opportunistic behavior. So I look at the e-collar as a cop and a collar.
Okay.
Right? When it's present, he's going to behave better.
Yeah.
And when it's off, he's going to push the boundaries.
I gotcha.
Yeah. So this is opportunistic behavior. It's nothing to do with my skills as a trainer or the training methods themselves. It's if the dog doesn't have to do it and doesn't want to, then why?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
The whole notion of when does a dog become a good dog is a myth. It's a saying. Okay. No dog wakes up and goes,
Choosing.
Yeah.
today I'm changing my ways, right? So the collar is simply present in case you need, you know, there's an emergency or what have you, you know, or if one day he decides, like, you know what happens if I don't do it?
Right.
You know, it's like, oh, too bad, you gotta do it anyways.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why I said even my dogs, if they're gonna be off leash, they have their collars on. Like this morning, I took them for a walk. They didn't have their collars on, and they walked great next to me, but they wasn't gonna come off.
We go up to Michigan for the summer. Are those
Waterproof.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Fully waterproof, both the transmitter and the receiver.
Perfect.
Okay.
Figured. But
Now the system that I'm recommending for you, okay, because the other dog's 60 pounds,
60, 65.
65, is the Doctra Black Edition.
See what?
Doctra Black Edition. Okay, the collar itself.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Yeah, because it's a different remote system
Okay.
to the Black Edition. It's meant for a 70-pound dog and over.
Okay.
The reason why I'm suggesting it is because I know he's small, but I can't account for the prey drive. But then also, if there's an emergency situation, we're not worried about are we going to be able to override?
Yeah.
Okay. And then for the other dog, obviously, it's 60 pounds.
Yeah.
I could put this collar on my 8-pound Chihuahua. It's completely fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
It just means you get more from less.
Right.
Okay. So his number would
Be less.
be less, right? Much less. It could also be higher.
you
Like
never
this
know.
stuff kind of happens. Yeah. So I can't predict that. The reason is the alternative that we have is for a 35-pound dog and under. He's like 25-ish.
Yeah.
About 25-ish.
Yeah.
The only issue with that one would be it's a much lower output. Is
Okay.
that if you do have an emergency situation, the amount of output may not be enough
Yes.
to come through.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they don't have a middle ground
Okay.
with this particular system because this remote can only connect to certain collars.
Okay.
So the two collars it can connect to, it's either high or low. So I go, well, then you might as well just go high.
Yeah.
In case there's an emergency, we're not worrying about is he going to override the collar or completely ignore it. Okay. Now for the remotes, there's two options. Again, if you're going the 2-dog way. One remote, it's one setting across the board. So both dogs would be at 20 or both dogs would be at 50.
Okay.
The other remote is respective levels per dog.
Okay.
The only issue is it's massive. Okay. I can show you.
Ernie, come by. Come by.
Just don't want him dirty.
I know.
So the one that's one dog setting across the board is the same size as this. The one that's 2 respective levels is this, and that doesn't even include the antenna.
Okay.
Okay, so here you can see there's different settings here. One for one dog, one for the second dog.
Oh, okay.
Okay, the reason why this one is also bigger is it pairs to more systems. This one might also have the option to pair to a middle collar. The only problem with the middle collar is that it's a box as opposed to a curve.
Okay.
The Black Edition is a curve, so even though he's small, it doesn't look
Super bulky.
exactly. Whereas the middle one would be this big box like
Yeah.
this. Okay. The smaller one is obviously smaller, but then again, we just lose power there. And this one only pairs to a couple of systems, which are the ones I'm recommending, or the collar-wise to you, but it's one setting across the board. So if they both happen to be 35, great, right? But then if one's like 21 and 60, that's the only thing. So in the beginning, you're kind of up and down. But again, you do get to a point where it's like, I don't need to use this all the time, right? So that it's really just in the beginning. You do get used to it. Like I have a 2-dog system that's one setting, you know, and I just navigate it as I need to.
So you just like flip a switch and it goes to like each collar, kind of?
Respective buttons.
Buttons, okay.
Yeah. Or there might be a switch. I'm trying to remember because this is the size of the
Both
remote.
dogs aren't getting zapped.
No.
Okay.
No. And you can't do them both at the same time either.
Okay.
Just because that's another common question.
Yeah.
Is the client's like, if they're both running off, what do I do? I'm like, I alternate.
Yeah.
When I press the buttons. Otherwise, there's no function to actually send stim to both collars at the same time.
Okay.
So, but because I priced this out for another client, and it was literally a 2-cent difference between if they did 2 of these to 2 collars and everything versus 2 of the other system, 2 collars and everything. Okay. And then what would happen is if you went that route, Tina would invoice you right away, so I can place the order from the distributor and ideally have it ready in time for the training, because it takes about 1 to 2 weeks for them to turn around, get it programmed, and then ship it out.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay. Other questions?
I don't think so. Do you have any?
No, I don't think so.
Otherwise, if you decided, we're just going to focus on Winston, the collar after tax, this is actually the remote for it, is about 310-ish
Okay.
with tax, okay? But that's a 1-dog system. So then if you did decide to
Add
do
Winston.
Winston, whatever, you're
have
buying a
2.
whole separate system.
Yeah. Okay.
Other questions?
No.
Well, that's pretty much it.
Okay.
I think we covered all the main points, because the most common one, of course, is when does it go away? I can only take as far as you're willing to go. If you're not doing the homework, obviously you're not going to get the results.
Right.
Don't be surprised if you see stress in the beginning. It's normal, but that's why we start with heal first, because most people walk their dogs 3 times a day, 7 days a week. So that's 3 times 7 days a week. We're practicing this exercise, but then also walking helps alleviate stress. So as we're building stress, we're walking it off at the same time. It's more exposure. When we see the dog go under stress, people tend to want to do less of the thing that's stressing the dog out, but then that keeps the dog in a limbo.
Right.
It's the opposite. You have to do more.
Yeah.
And then at a certain point, they go, okay, I know what this is, and then it goes away. Okay.
All right.
So that's pretty much it. So you can think about it, mull it over. Once you know what you want to do, you can either ping Tina and go, hey, Tina, sign us up. This is what we want, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
And if you want to expedite things a little bit, you can also send her your schedule. Okay. Because that's one of the first things she's going to ask.
Yeah.
So then she has that information right away. She'll send you the contract form. Once that's submitted, she knows you're serious. It is first come, first serve.
Yep.
Feel free to ask questions about the contract. But we've had clients in the past ask a lot of questions. And then when they are ready to book, it's like, well, now Jesse has less availability. Yes.
Yeah.
So, but again, feel free to ask questions. It's a pretty straightforward contract. And then if there's anything that you forgot to ask that pertain to me, she'll email me. I'll send her the answer. She'll forward it to you.
Okay.
Otherwise, once you start training, you'll get access to me directly via email.
Okay.
And then that's where I send you your video links as well. It usually takes me about a week to edit and upload a video and get it over to you for future reference. Okay. Oh, last thing is, just recently, like in the past week, I've been putting up more educational videos. If you want to see what the training looks like, my YouTube channel, you can access it through my website. Click on any video, go to my channel, and then you'll see like how to teach heel in the real world, or you'll see how to teach and apply heel to a nervous, jumpy Great Dane. Like that's the newest ones I've put up. Okay. Where I'm real time working with the dog outside. Like Ajax is here for a 4-week board and train. He's now today is the start of his 3rd week. But I talk about he just did 3 days of training. Now we're taking it outside, and this is how we start to get it to work outside. So it gives you an idea of what the training looks like. Yeah. Okay. And that it works.
Yeah.
So, okay. Otherwise, that's pretty much it.
Okay.
Anything else?
I do not believe so.
No. All right.
It's very informative.
Yeah. Well, it was a pleasure meeting you guys.
It's
nice talking to you. Like I said, if you have any questions, let us know. Otherwise, Tina will get you taken care of. And then while you're taking your time, I email her and send her my recommendations, and then she turns around and sends them over to you if you haven't reached out already yourselves.
Okay.
Okay. Awesome. All right, guys. Well, enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you. You too.
It's a beautiful Saturday from what I saw.
Yes. Honestly, though, it's getting a little chilly.
Oh, is it?
It started like way nicer than it's now. But
Yeah, I walked my dogs in the morning and it was like nice and warm.